are searching for answers today in Edmonton. Again, after the Oilers suffered one of their biggest collapses in franchise history last night. I mean, listen, the lead wasn't that big, but what ended up happening was big. Edmonton led Chicago 2-1 after 2 periods of play. It all came flying apart in the third as the Blackhawks scored 5 times in 9 minutes, prompting one fan to do that. Tossed the old orange on the ice. 6-2 the final as the Oilers dropped their 6th straight game, but remarkably they sit just 3 points out of a wild card spot. Are they still in it? And by it, I'm not sure what I mean.
Well, they're 3 points out of the last wild card spot.
Right.
You just said it. Can I take you back?
Of course you can.
You and I weren't here.
Take me back.
You and I weren't here when Peter Chiarelli was fired.
Okay.
And really, they were trying to hold it together as best they could.
Yeah, they were trying to hold it together.
Hold it together. So Bob Nicholson.
They were being pulled apart.
Bob Nicholson. People trying to rip this at the seams, man. One of us is throwing our shoulder out. What a break for Faisal. So Bob, you and I aren't here, but Bob Nicholson has the huge press conference. Yeah. And he was asked about what's next and where the Oilers go. I would like to revisit that clip momentarily. Would you allow me the few seconds?
Yeah, of course.
This is CEO Bob Nicholson of the Oilers back on January 23rd.
We're not into a rebuild. I truly believe we're not into a rebuild. We have the best player in the world. We have other real good players in that dressing room. It's going to be great to have Oscar back. We need his depth on defense. We've got real good pieces. Do we have to supplement that better? Yes. But I really believe a lot of the solution is right inside the dressing room.
Most of the solution in that dressing room, aside from one guy, and you can figure out who it is, quit last night. Quit. My words, not his. Quit.
What, Draisaitl you're talking about?
Yeah, the guy was -2 and scored 2 goals. How does that work?
He did score 2 goals.
He was a -2 as well.
Yeah, he's got 30 goals.
He was a -2 last night. So he was on the ice for 4 goals last night?
No, I understand, but he scored a lot of goals.
Yeah, he's a lot of big goals. Big goals for this team.
They're the only team
with
in
97.
the league. Okay, just...
That team quit last night. The answers are not in that room. The answers weren't in the gondola above. The answers weren't behind the bench earlier this season. This roster is a disaster. I don't care if they're 3 points out. They have to leapfrog 4 teams, man. Do you see this team who folded like a cheap suit, who folded like an 80s wrestler whose nickname is his own name?
Right.
You know the ones I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, I know. They just...
The Ultimate Warrior took on Rick James or whatever the hell his name was.
Right. I get you.
That's what the Oilers were last night. Not against one of the best teams in hockey. Team playing better in Chicago, but not one of the best teams in hockey. And they quit in front of their home crowd with the playoffs sitting there 3 points away.
Barry Horowitz.
But that's still a flashy name. You know, I'm talking about like Dave Sampson or something like that, former Marlins president. They quit. The answer's not in that room. The answer's not on the roster. This team's not going to the playoffs. Stop lying to your fan base to save face. This thing's over.
Listen, they could.
Over.
They could go to the playoffs. They could be at rock bottom and be 3 points out of the playoffs. See the Anaheim Ducks. Like, they have hit rock bottom, and all they would need is for anybody else, anyone, to help Connor McDavid. I'm throwing Leon Draisaitl into that mix, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is a good hockey player. Darnell Nurse does his job on defense, and Clefbaum needs more than 1 game to get acclimated before we throw him into the mix.
Clefbaum a pass.
But when you look between the pipes and realize the only time the Oilers made a run during this season was when Mikko Koskinen got hot, and now you've paid him to be that hot goaltender, and he is not that hot goaltender, and Cam Talbot is broken down. Cam Talbot stayed in the room yesterday after he was yanked.
Cam Talbot's praying to be traded between now and February 25th. Praying.
Apparently sat beside him in practice today and said, "This is our guy." And everyone else reiterated.
How did he say it again?
Cam, this is our guy. You know why?
It's very emotional.
Because he bleeping has to. The only way the Oilers do anything, they get scoring.
But
there's 2 guys that will score.
How's he the guy if Koskinen got the contract?
Don't ask me that.
You didn't give him the contract. I'm mad at you.
Yeah, don't ask
But
me
how
that.
are you going to put your arm around? How did he say it again?
This is our guy.
This is our guy. But we gave a bigger deal to the other guy.
Right. Because I think that he just looked at two of them and goes, I gotta say it about one of them.
I gotta say
like
something.
one of these guys has got to be one of
something.
one of these guys, and that's the only way the Oilers do anything this year. And you're right, it's been the same bleeping problem the entire time. They've got one player, they've got maybe two players. Nugent Hopkins is a good hockey player who's a complimentary role guy on a good team, and on this team, they're like, man, we could use. They're the only team in the National Hockey League with 2 30-goal scorers, and they stink. Like the drop-off after Nugent Hopkins, for those who are going to put pucks in net at last check, important in the game of hockey, are non-existent, and Daryl Cates, there's nobody left to fire. Like, you could look at Bob Nicholson if you wanted to.
There's a couple of guys you could fire. I'm not saying it would do anything.
Oh, but apparently they've been doing nothing for a long time. So why? I mean, I know that there are fans in Edmonton yelling and screaming for Cates to look at the guys that have been around that team for a long time and say, Mac T, your time is up, Kevin Lowe. But I've been told they're doing nothing there anyway. So I don't even if you get rid of them, the hell are you doing?
What if Daryl Cates goes the other way and just brings in former Calgary Flames?
Right.
What if he just takes a completely different tact and brings in Flames that no one in Calgary or in Edmonton respects, but might actually win you some games and draft some players that are good and make some good decisions?
Joe Nieuwendyk.
Anybody. I'll take anybody at this point.
Gary Roberts comes to town.
They're 3 points out of a playoff spot, though, so I like their chances, Tim.